Dave Parody of ThinkOutsideTheSlide.com here. In this video I want to show you how to add a shaded area between two lines. So in this particular example here we have a projection line in blue. That's what our projected warehousing costs are going to be in each of these months. And then we're looking at transitioning to outsourcing in one of the regions. So there are going to be some transition costs, so it'll be higher than the projection. But then with the outsourcing we save each month, and so the overall we're going to save during the year and then in future years. So how do we add that shaded section between the two lines? It's going to be done using a stacked area graph where one of the areas is invisible. So I'm going to go over here to the data. So here's the data, and the first data series we have are the projections. So that's the numbers that we've already projected for the year. And then we have our second data series, which is what do those numbers look like when we do the outsourcing. So you'll notice that it starts only in February. Now the outsourcing is going to happen in March, but we start that second line at the same February point so that it joins. And then we have the numbers, and you can see they're higher in March and April, and then they drop below to the 45 difference for all the months starting in June and on. So those are our two lines. That's very simple. Now how do we get that shaded area in between? And that's where our third and fourth data series come in. So the spacer data series, this is going to be an invisible area that goes from the baseline to our projection line, or our first data series. And you see the equation here is just simply equals whatever the value is in column B. Very, very simple. Now, the way we get that shaded area is this difference data series. It starts in February because that's where the line starts, and the formula is the second line, the value for the second line, the with outsource, minus the value for the projection. And that is the same formula for every single cell. So for the positive ones, it's the same formula, and for the negative ones, it's the same formula. Now, negative, initially you kind of think that doesn't make any sense, but what it does is it means that the shaded area is going to go below that first line where the spacer is. Now, why do I have two more data series here? Well, this is a way that we can add explanatory text. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the explanations, this text, at certain spots using a line graph. So I've only got two spots that I want to add text to. We're going to use the feature of adding data labels from a different data series. So go ahead and create this graph. So I'm going to highlight all of my data series except for my explanation, and I'm going to insert a regular line chart. So I insert my regular line chart. Now, what I want to do is start by setting our spacer and our difference series to be not lines, but areas. So I'm going to right click on the difference series because we can see that, and say change series chart type. So in the dialog box that comes up, I can go down and I can say, oh, the spacer, I want that to be, I click on the arrow and it allows me to choose whichever type of graph I want to use. And I want to use this one, which is the stacked area. And I'm going to add the difference being a stacked area as well. So now you can see it's in our preview here, we're seeing that our shaded area, which is currently in yellow, we're going to change that in a moment, shows us, emphasizes the difference between those two. So those are the two changes I need to make for the type of graph for those two data series. Now, obviously I need to change the shading, so I'm going to select my spacer series first, and on the format, change the fill color to no fill, and the outline to no outline. Now for my shading here, the difference, I'm going to change that fill color to, let's say, a gray, and the outline color, I don't want an outline. So now what I've done is I've added these shaded areas above and below where appropriate using the data series. Now, next thing we need to do is to clean it up a bit and add some labeling. So I'm going to move my chart over here, and I'm going to remove the chart title. I don't need that, and I don't need the legend. The grid lines, you can leave those in if you want to see the grid lines below or behind the shaded area. And one of the things you can do is for that shaded fill area, you can go to more fill colors and set the transparency slider. So I find usually about 50% transparent works, and then the audience can see the grid lines in between if you wanted to have that sort of effect. So when we add the labeling, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the label for the projection line. So I'm going to select the projection line, and I'm going to select just the first data point. So this is the technique of adding a data label to just one data point on a line. I'm going to add the data label, go to my More Options, and select the series name. I don't need the value or leader lines. And in the position, I'm going to put it below. Now I can change on my home ribbon, I can change that text to, let's say, be bold and the same color as the projection line. This makes it a lot easier for the audience to connect the label to the actual line. I'm going to do the same thing here, let's say with our outsourcing. I'm going to add that data label. Again, I'm going to add a data label that has the series name and position it below. Changing the color and making it bold here. So that's fairly straightforward, adding a data label to a single data point. Now we have the text that we want to add from that explanation text. So how do we do that? Well, we need to select our text line. It's not really visible because it's kind of on top of the existing visible line. So anytime you want to select a data series, you can go to the Chart Tools Format ribbon and simply select it from this drop-down list on the far left. So I'm going to select that line, and I'm going to say the outline will be no outline, but I do want to add here data series, or data labels, sorry, to this series. And I'm going to go to More Options, and here's where I'm going to say I want to select the value, the labels, from a set of cells. And it asks me which cells, what range do you want to use. So I'm going to use the range here for our explanation text. And I'm going to say I don't need value or leader lines. And now I can decide where I want those labels to appear. So I'm going to put them above, and that puts both of them above. I'll close this task pane so you can see the monthly savings. Now if I want the monthly savings to be below that data point, so it's in the gray area, I can select just that one data label, and I can change its position to be below. And so now it sits in the actual gray section. I can change the font if I wanted to make it a different color. I think the black works well with the gray. It connects visually for the audience. So that's how we can add a graph that has a shaded area to emphasize the difference between a current state and a new state or a projected state with a change. Try that out in Excel, and it will make a more effective visual for your audience.